Here's something that might make you angry. What if the company you're working for is billing your clients four times what the company is paying you? That's exactly what my guest discovered when she was laid off from her corporate consulting role. And that realization changed everything. My name is AJ Riedel. This is Thriving Through the podcast, where each week I have real conversations with seasoned, successful, self employed consultants about what it really takes to build a sustainable, profitable, and fulfilling consulting practice. Today, I'm talking with Alyssa Schaefer, a business consultant who helps entrepreneurs build the technical infrastructure their businesses desperately need. But here's what makes Alyssa's story especially fascinating. She brings together 8 years as a corporate consultant with 10 years as a bartender to help business owners bridge the gap between what they think they need and what will actually make their businesses work. If you've ever felt stuck in the feast or famine cycle, if you're working 18-hour days just to keep up, or if you know your business needs systems, but you have no idea where to start, this episode is for you. Alyssa breaks down the systems every consultant needs: marketing, sales, service, and support. And she gets real about the challenges we all face, from imposter syndrome to the overwhelming feeling that you have to build everything yourself. We also dive into something I know many of you struggle with. How do you start building your consulting business while you're still employed? Alyssa has strong opinions about LinkedIn testimonials and why waiting until you're on your own is one of the biggest mistakes consultants make. This conversation is packed with practical advice that you can implement immediately. So let's dive in. Welcome to this episode of the Thriving Through podcast. Today, my guest is Alyssa Schaefer. And boy, are you in for a treat today. Alyssa, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What was your path to becoming a self-employed consultant?
Well, I think there's always a good story and a bad story, but unfortunately for me, the story was not as flattering, but it was, at a time where the fad of the month was to dismantle tech teams and use overseas resources, like basically replace US resources with overseas resources. So me and my entire team was completely dismantled. And I had realized when I was laid off that, you know, my boss was basically billing four times what he was paying me. And so through that realization, I decided to, brave the big bad world, be the wizard, step out from behind the curtain, if you will, of what I was doing for clients.
And just do it and build the clients directly and make more money.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually bummed about my LinkedIn profile. I was like, wow, I should have been building this up the whole time. So if you are just getting started or you still have your 9 to 5, I highly recommend, like, in the background there, you can't lose anything by, sharing content, just your daily stories. It can't hurt at all. I mean, unless you
True.
start, yeah. It, I mean, I guess,
Unless you
sorry, I'm going to,
start, sharing too much.
yeah, I was going to say, okay, huge caveat that there's always a
Yes.
bad, but at the end of the day, building up the profile, asking for recommendations. There's so many things that I could have been doing the whole time that I was late to, or I felt late to. So if you have a 9 to 5, just do it.
Keep doing it. And that was about 8 years ago.
No, so I was a consultant for about 8 years, and I've been an independent consultant for about two,
Oh, okay.
although
So,
very focused on the last year.
okay. How has when we talked earlier, you talked both about that experience as a consultant and also your bartending for 10 years. And that unique combination shaped your perspective on
It did.
building business systems. So tell me about that.
Well, so I build technical infrastructure, and it's just a fancy word for how businesses operate. And my bartending was, ironically, one of my strongest skills that I brought to this picture. And that is because bartending, obviously you make drinks and you are providing a service, but really it's just talking to people. And so when it comes to technology, I will just kind of throw it out there that people they get a little bit of a bruised ego. Nobody wants to say that they don't understand tech, and it's hard for people to admit that and feel okay with that, which I promise you, if you're listening to this, you are not alone. So you feel free to admit it. It's okay. It's everybody. And so what happens though is when I was in these tech meetings, I would call myself this I would call myself a social lubricant though, because I was bridging the gap between the people who were tech know-hows and the tech don't know-hows. And I was able to use those communication skills to help everybody in the room understand, most importantly, the people who are tech know-hows, they need to know what they need to build and how they need to build it. And the people who don't understand what they're talking about, especially if they come in the room thinking they know what they're talking about, we need information from them that's going to help us build it. And so without, making anybody feel less than, because it's just knowledge, I called myself a social lubricant because I was really used my bartending skills to bridge that gap, because bartending forces you to talk to everybody, uh, all all walks of life, and we won't even get into those stories because it's mildly horrifying.
So tell us a story or two about the biggest challenges you faced in the last 2 years building your business and how you've overcome them.
So I think the first thing everybody has to overcome is imposter syndrome, for the whole realization that I had of, my boss is billing 4x what he's paying me. Just this whole concept of, because I could have gone out on my own so long ago. And there's part of me that wishes I had. So I would say the first one is definitely imposter syndrome and feeling like, oh, am I really qualified? Well, the reality is everybody has valuable information to share. It comes to the second thing, which is, do you actually want to do all of the legwork that it takes to own and run a business? I think that I had an advantage a little bit just because I'm a business analyst, right? So I I knew what I needed to build. And I think unfortunately a lot of consultants come in and they're like, even if they don't suffer from imposter syndrome, they're like, I can do this. But then they're like, oh crap, I need a marketing system and a sales system and a service system and a support system. And it's just me. So I got to do all that.
All
And
of that.
so I, one thing I will say is I had an advantage, but that doesn't necessarily help you do the work. It doesn't help you do the work, right? You still have to do it. And so I actually enjoyed that process though, figuring out for me individually how I wanted to support my clients and what was the best way for me to do that. Because one thing that when I was working for the last company I worked for, I was in back to back meet. I would work 18-hour days because I was in 8 hours worth of meetings during the working hours. And then in those meetings, I had hours and hours and hours of work stacking up. And so when are you going to do that work? And so I would literally work 18-hour days. And so the advantage of being an independent consultant is you get to structure how you want to work. And it's kind of a tough question to answer, but by answering it, then you get to build a business that you can enjoy working on. But like I said, you got to do all the things. So that's the second thing that was the biggest struggle. Was I was like, oh, it was a lot easier when I had a development team.
Yes, when you had all those resources and the name behind you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you brought up a good point. I want to talk about pricing. So
Mm.
you found out that your boss was billing you out, charging the client 4 times what you were getting. When you came out on your own, did you charge that amount, that 4 times amount, or did you feel like you didn't have the credibility to charge quite that much?
I worked my way up. My first few clients were, I was working at a co-work space at the time. And so my first few clients were friends of mine. They were people who just needed my help, doing kind of more basic stuff. When you're comparing building a funnel versus building an entire CRM ecosystem, two very different levels of work, but both valuable. And so I was giving them, I'm going to say, a friends and family discount, but that also was appeasing the imposter syndrome. So, but I did work my way up, to what is actually like my billable rate. I will say that, the company charging 4 times, they're also charging for some other stuff in terms of it's, not just the knowledge. It's, for me, I have more of a knowledge capacity and not as much of an implementation. Although I do implementations, it's much more of a, here's what you need to build, and then if you want my help building it, then I can offer that. However, it's more the knowledge side, and so the price is according to the value of the information. And that's, maybe my problem on sales calls is I just give everybody the answers because I don't know. you I'm like so solution oriented. So, but it's, the knowledge is really the most valuable piece, because from all these tech implementations I was part of, the number of times I ended up fixing broken tech, not starting from scratch is the best part,
Yes,
but
right.
fixing poorly designed broken tech. So I can tell you the information is way more valuable than the execution side. Like if you have a crappy plan executed very well, you're going to have way worse results than having a great plan executed mediocre. So um yeah, I worked my way up though. It was a process, I this was a great opportunity to be more self-reflective on it, obviously, as you move through the stages, if you will, of being an independent consultant. um you know it's, and I will actually say, I'll throw in a caveat in. If you talk to like AI, right? Like I like Claude better than ChatGPT. There are,
Yes,
and
me too.
and by the time this posts, there's going to be 17 others that, so, but whatever one, you feel comfortable with, I highly recommend that you go in and have a conversation about what you do. And I actually, because for a while I was on Upwork and I still have my Upwork profile. The problem with Upwork is they devalue, it's the same way that my boss was. They devalue the type of work that I do. But I was having a conversation with Claude about how to price myself accordingly, earlier this year. And I kept saying like, "Oh, what about this Upwork project? What about that Upwork project?" And Claude's like calling me out. He's like, "That sounds like you're not valuing yourself again." I was like, so I will say that if this is something that you're struggling with, I highly recommend, like, I would use Claude, as like a wall to bounce information off of, and I would use Perplexity to research what is the market rate for what service, or what help you provide businesses, and that really takes your emotions out of the mix. And these are tools that I used along the way to help me be able to have this conversation where I'm like, yeah, no, really, like that's what it's worth.
Right. And to feel comfortable saying that, knowing that they're not going to, your ideal client is not going to have a problem with that. They're going to have less of a problem with that rate than you are. We
Well,
have to
because
get
they want,
comfortable with charging what we're worth.
well, and they want the value. So it's really not about the money. I mean, there was a conference I went to where they were talking about price, and they were getting everybody to overcome hating sales because it's a thing. And he was talking about a used water bottle. And he's on stage with this used water bottle. And he's like, "How much is this worth to you?" Right? It's like literally half drank, it's open, it's crinkled, it's all these things, right? He's like, not even $1, right? But if you're dying of thirst in the desert, and I give you this, what is that water bottle worth? And it, for me, it was so simple, but it it just snapped something in my head where I was like, got it. Like, the money is not the important part. It's what somebody gets and money is the resource to getting it.
Right. It's the transformation, the outcome.
Yeah.
They don't they don't wake up and say, I think I'll hire a consultant today. They
No.
wake up
Well,
and say, I have this problem and I think I need help.
and consultants, I mean, after having been a consultant for almost a decade, I say this about bartenders. Not all bartenders are created equal. And there's like a reputation for consultants that you just sit in meetings and talk about doing work and don't actually do any work. You just talk about doing the work. Like, I met a lot of consultants that were like that. And I kind of realized as I became a consultant why that was like maybe a bad reputation or stereotype. And so the reality is that becoming a consultant is really by figuring out what information is valuable and really focusing on that part, and the transformation and the delivery of it is way more important than, not FaceTime, but meetings. Like, nobody wants to be in meetings all day. That was too long.
That you've worked with businesses on data infrastructure and systems integrated for now 10 years.
Yeah.
Your corporate and now. What are the most common mistakes you see consultants make when they're trying to connect different software tools together?
Data. I'm going to say that data is the least sexy thing on the planet, but it is make or break of businesses. For instance, YouTube and PayPal sold for billions with a B. And that's not, one's a banking platform and one's like a video hosting platform, if we're being real. But they sold for that because of the data that somebody who bought that company got access to. And when it comes to consultants, it's kind of funny because I literally just made a video about this yesterday, that you need a tech doctor, if you will, because as you're growing, as I help coaches, consultants, and agencies fix these problems. But what's funny is, as you grow, you kind of go, okay, as we were talking about, like realizing you need to do marketing and you need to do sales and you need to do service and support and all these. And then all of a sudden you have all these platforms doing all these different things. And so then, to your point, then you need to connect them. And the problem when people start connecting things is then they lose track of what's going on and what's flying where and what infrastructure, whose data is the most important. How am I supposed to make reliable business decisions that are actually accurate? Because at the end of the day, you've got a little bit of a mess, and I call it put together with duct tape and dreams. And I love the bootstrapping duct tape and dreams people. Believe me, I was that for a very long time, right? But unfortunately, what happens is then you hit a bottleneck, because then you're trying to serve more clients, then you're trying to grow your revenue, you're trying to get more leads. And the problem is, if I gave you 10 more clients, could you actually support 10 more clients? And for most people, the answer is no. And that's because of the systems. And so I actually, this is not even a self promotion. I made a tech health scorecard because there are 4 pillars that most businesses struggle with. And that is software integrations, data quality, um, user experience. Like, is it actually simple, not only for your internal team but for the clients as well? And then workflow efficiency, because you know if you take a piece of paper and you list out all your tasks, and the reason I tell you to do it on paper is because when people put technology into the mix, all of a sudden people get very like, oh, technology. And it's like, no, 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 we don't want to know what technology is going to fix the problem. We want to know what you need to do, and then that's going to lead to how best to do it. And so I think that the biggest challenge that consultants face is, as all these areas grow, they tend to kind of come up with all these workarounds that then compound over time. And then your business, when you're actually trying to grow, not when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to scale, then you come across all these bottlenecks that used to work when you're growing. But as you're trying to scale, they become your Achilles heel, if you will. And the biggest problem is, uh, it's a double-edged blade, but people always say to me like, well, we've never done it any other way. And so they've never even thought of, oh, hey, there might be a better way to do this, because they've always done it that way. And humans don't like change, so don't even get me started on that rant. But it's, especially when it comes to tech and it's an area that everyone's uncomfortable with. It's hard to imagine a world where it's just easy, like, oh my god, wait, I don't have to send reminders. I don't have to send an agenda. I don't have to track my action items after having a call with someone. And all of a sudden I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God. Like, so it's a little bit of whiplash that people tend to have when they realize how they're doing their work is not only harder than they have to do it, but they've never even thought that it could be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I
It's kind
want
of
to,
funny because I play in the pool I swim in. I play in the pool I swim in, right? Like we're having
uh,
a conversation about becoming a consultant, but I talk to consultants so regularly that this is, it's it's a twofer because I feel their pain because I am also a
because you've been
consultant.
there. Yeah. You're going through it as well. When we talked earlier, you brought up a fascinating MIT study showing
Yeah.
that 95% of AI implementations are failing. So,
Yeah. It wasn't good.
yeah, from your perspective, why do you think so many businesses are struggling with AI implementation?
Well, I guess I've already ripped off the Band-Aid about not everybody being great with tech. So all I will, I think the easiest way to put this is 5 years ago when AI was not really a popular thing, right? It was a thing, but not everybody knew about it, right? Um, People back then were struggling to build proper automations. They were struggling to build proper integrations. They were struggling to build basic things. And I used to call the developers I worked with tech gods. Like I am just a little bit more knowledgeable than, I've just been in meetings for 10 years gathering this information, right? So it's it's not that I'm saying that it's not me being smarter or that even them being smarter, but it's just a way of thinking about it. And so when it comes to AI agents and all the things that AI can do, the reality is that I knew 5 years ago that when people thought about automations, they were thinking about them wrong because I was saying, what does this need to do for the business requirements? And people were going, I just don't want to move the spreadsheet stuff from one spreadsheet to another. So that's actually a direct quote from somebody I had a conversation with. I was like, that's not what automation is or what it's for. And this is somebody who works at a $60 million company, right? So it's not a capability thing. This is just an understanding thing. And so what I'll say is that AI has a much higher threshold. And, even us tech people who are just dipping our toes in. I had a guy come to me and he wanted to build an AI agent to do all of his work for him. And I was like, you basically need some marketing automations. Like you need some follow-up sequences first. And then we can build you an AI agent to do all this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, I should have, at a certain point then it's like, should I just take his money? Like, cause he's trying to give it to me to build this crazy thing. But I was like, that's not really what you need. Like, I don't want to be responsible for building you something that ultimately is never going to work anyway, because the reality is if you actually think of an AI agent as a person, right? It's a person that comes on your team. Well, you can't just sign up a new employee and then them magically know how things work. You have to train them, you have to give them standard operating procedures, you have to give them if this happens then that. And so that's a lot of documentation. And so a lot of businesses don't have that documentation on hand. And so
Mhm.
when it comes to AI, they're trying to use it for all this robust stuff. However, they're pretending like it's going to magically know what you want it to do. And I think the 95 that's failing are also people who were like, take the reins, and then they just let it ride. And I think that they also are we're having some, I think we're having some hindsight whiplash at this point, which I'm happy about because then we can actually have a conversation about what it really takes to make something successful out of AI. But if you're listening to this and you're trying to start integrating AI, that's definitely not the problem, but it's thinking about how to. So, for instance, even just having an AI note taker in the background of every meeting that you're in. So it's something that is transcribing, it's something that's taking notes, it's calling out your action items. And if you set up automations, then those could be automatically imported into your task management system, whatever one you choose to use. There's like a million. So the point is just that one thing. You're just turning on one, you're getting one Chrome extension, right? And there's plenty of free ones. You don't have to buy the expensive ones. And just that alone is going to save you so much time with follow-up. And so I think that everyone's like, okay, cool, we're going to get this big AI thing that's going to solve all these giant problems. And it's like, okay, well, how can it fix the small problems first? So that's where I think they're failing, is how you're approach. It's the thought. And that's why I went back to the people couldn't build an automation 5 years ago, because it's not something people learned. It's just a bigger problem. And so I think that, back then, nobody would have said 95% of businesses are failing with automation, but the consequences were a lot less. And so I think the 95% is just an expansion of what people were already struggling with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Just magnified.
Magnified and faster. The AI agent is just gonna go mess up stuff way faster. Like, they're just gonna go. They're just like, aye, Captain. I mean, that's what I used to tell people about automations. I'm like, they're gonna do the work whether you like. They're just gonna follow your instructions. I One horrifying client story. It's very short. I had a client who came to me and was like, "Hey, this contact automation we have is not really working, right?" So I'm like, "Okay, cool. Give me the documentation." I read it and I go down to the bottom and it says delete contacts, and I'm like, you're what?" Like you have an automation that's automatically deleting stuff. So I dig into this, come to find that he's been deleting his contacts for a year
Oh
because he had
no.
because he had two automations that were running at the same time. They were counteracting each other, and this one was saying delete stuff. So it's just like, and
Deleting.
the automation doesn't stop and be like, "Hey, like, sir, are you sure you want to be deleting all your contacts?" Like, it just like, "No, you told me to delete it. I'm just going to delete it." So that's maybe the part that, like a human is going to probably push back a little bit. And I wasn't the one who built this automation. I would have pushed back. I would have been like, "You're insane." Like, no. And I'm not building that. You build that. I'm not building it. And so, at the very least, we don't delete it. We put it in a bucket or something that you can go through later. But the point is that, you know, this this whole concept of, you know, technology is just going to do what you tell it to do. And AI has kind of a mind of its own. So it's like, I know what to do. And you're like, oh, that's a terrible plan. And you don't find out till later when your clients are
Yeah.
like, what happened? And you're like, oh, our AI agent went rogue. Like, it's just silly. It's like silly problems to have. And the
Yeah, it
cause,
didn't really go rogue. You just didn't give it the right information.
that's
One of
just the
a,
excuse.
a podcast guest I had a while ago told me, and this has transformed how I interact with Claude. He said every time he does an AI prompt, he ends it with ask any clarifying questions before proceeding. And I do that, and it's always amazing what questions Claude comes up with that I wouldn't have thought to prompt. And if I hadn't prompted, he would have been off making assumptions and giving me stuff that I didn't want.
it's such a simple it's such a simple addition at the end of every single before you do this, ask anything you need to know. Like, before you like, just even, and they will always ask, like, they'll even make up random like, at a certain point, if you think you've really done a thorough, like, job on your prompt, it's even going to ask you random questions. You're like, okay, that's not relevant, but thank you for asking, because if you never asked it, then we don't know that that's for sure not relevant. But it's such a simple, I say this about prompting is, people tend to put in zero effort up front, right? Just like, hey, do this thing, or hey, I'm doing this thing, or you help me do this thing. And then they let Claude or ChatGPT or whoever do, 95% of the hard lifting. But if you actually spent 10% upfront, right? Just thinking about what outcome you really wanted, what the task is, if you could give it a format of what output you want, things of that sort. And this is like you copying and pasting, like, hey, I'm writing a blog, right? So you create whatever the blog's about, you're going to give it the information, it's going to restructure it, but then you give it a past blog that you've written, and so it gives the format, then it's automatically going to spit out a better answer than if you just say, hey, I'm writing a blog about this thing, go. And even if you ask it, you say, hey, I'm writing a blog about this thing, ask me clarifying questions, cool. But like, if you start giving it other things that it can model after and things of that sort, but it's just that 10% up front. I think people, that's maybe this part of this mindset gap, is people think AI is just going to do the work, when it's like, no, think of it as your your backseat driver. Like, not that anybody likes those, but you have to think of it as something that's helping you, like your navigation system. If you don't tell it the destination, it doesn't know where to guide you to go. So it's just that little bit of extra up front that it's going to make all the difference on
Abs-
the output. Garbage in, garbage out, though. That's a data thing too. The
Yes,
least
garbage in,
sexy thing.
garbage out. Yes. And unfortunately, at least Claude, they've given him such personality that you don't realize you're getting garbage because it
Well,
all sounds so rational. And then I will sometimes go back and challenge it, and it'll say, "Oh, you're right." It's
mhm.
like,
I so all right, this is I was using Claude for shadow work. I don't know if you've done shadow work or anybody listening if you've done shadow work. I am not the kind of person that's going to go sit on a couch. I'm much more proactive about it. So I was using Claude for shadow work, and I was a gymnast, and so I'm a recovering perfectionist. And but granted, the whole sport's built on perfection, so it just it was ingrained in me so young. And so I gave it an experience that I had in a recent, like, something that happened, and it jumped down my throat about, like, oh my god, like, you were this and that. It's like the shadow, oh, this is your shadow coming out and all that. And I was like, no, you told me that I am a recovering perfectionist. This was me not caring about the perfection part. I just didn't like in the conversation, I didn't like how somebody was saying a something as simple as a spelling error is the same as having a spelling error. Like, a spelling error on a social media post is the same as a spelling error on a business card, right? That's just an example, but that it was equating these two things. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Those are not the same. But then Claude jumped down my throat, and I was like, I pushed back, and I was like, okay, you've been telling me all day that I'm a perfectionist. And I just gave you an example of me not being a perfectionist. And now you're telling me I need to be a perfectionist again? And so one thing I will say about AI is that's where this whole conversation has the undertone of this whole conversation is putting a little too much faith in it, blind faith, with no evidence that what it's saying is accurate. And to be honest with you, okay, so the one of okay, so asking clarifying questions, right? That's a great prompt to get a little deeper into the topic. But you and I are talking about pushing back, where we're saying, like, give me reasons why you disagree with this sentiment, or something of that sort. I don't know if any, and I've gotten in arguments with Claude a lot because I'm a QA tester by nature, right? I poke and prod technology until it breaks. But and I was QA testing a coaching, it's like ChatGPT but coach style. So somebody put all their coaching material in there, so it's like coaching like this person. So I'm having this conversation with this coach, and I'm like, you haven't asked me one question, like, and it was like, oh, you're totally right. So it's like, it's kind of funny how fast it folds, especially Claude. But asking clarifying questions, but also poking it and prodding it, and, like, actually making it self-assess how the like, do you believe the information you're saying? Like, it's something you just have to do, because after the experience, then it changes how you prompt AI, because you are prompting it from a place where it's fallible. So then you start prompting it differently, and you start getting better answers, because you're not expecting it to be this, like, God.
right, right, which is easy to think.
it's e- it's what everyone's been saying. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to take over, it's going to replace all the jobs. It's going to, it's coming to take over the world." Like, obviously, I don't listen I mean, I don't listen to the news anyway, cuz it is doomsday style information. But at the end of the day, if that's what everyone goes in thinking, this is, again, the undertone of this conversation. It's how you think about it when you approach it. Like, so if you come in to build an automation thinking, oh, I don't want to move stuff from one spreadsheet to another, and it's like, okay, like, you know, the undertone of what does this really do changes how you see what it can do. And so if you make Claude or ChatGPT, Perplexity, any of it, if you make it just fallible in your mind, it changes how you have the conversation, how you implement it in your business, what you use it for. Because if you see it as fallible, then you don't put it on client facing things. You don't make it your ads manager. Like, you make it something on the back end that is tracking data, cleaning data, doing the ugly, boring work, invoicing, stuff you don't want to do. And so, but just the thought like, oh, it actually is not right 100% of the time will 100% increase the quality of output that you get, just because you're going to approach it being like, I know more than you, but you can help me do this thing.
Yeah, good. I
Especially
want
if
to
it's a
switch.
topic that, sorry, I was going to say, especially if it's a topic you're a professional in, right? Like if I'm writing content about technical infrastructure, yeah, it has a lot of information about that, but we're the experts on the things we're doing. So like, be the expert. It's just your cheerleader. Sorry.
So I want to switch and ask about some questions about the future. You've been on your own, self-employed for 2 years. Is your consulting practice delivering the lifestyle you dreamed of?
Everything's a process. So I will say that, where I am today is, say if we had this conversation a year from now, I would hope that, there's a few things that I would love to, implement on. So I have on my, how I started down this road of independent business ownership was I built an online course for my horses. It was just something I built in the background. It was just something where there wasn't any information online about this thing, so I tracked what I did and then taught it to other people. Like it was very natural. And so
Mhm.
one thing I would want to expand on is, my library of, free resources where people can be a little bit more self-taught right now. I it's Alyssa heavy. And so it's such a process, but the goal, is to create more systems that help me help more people, because that was the whole point of getting out of the one-to-one consulting. I realized that being trapped in those rooms was limiting how many people I could help. When, our whole conversation's been about mindset behind tech. It's not about the tech itself. It's about how you think about how you use tech. And so I want to help more people, and I can only do that by transitioning. And so that's kind of my next phase, is transitioning to like a one to many style. And it's a process. So I'm still working on the best way for me to actually successfully do that, and get people the results they want. Because right now when I build technical infrastructure, it's individual. I'm looking at your business, I'm looking at what you struggle with, I'm looking at your workflows and fixing those things. And the reality is, no matter how many times I tell Claude, it's not one size fits all.
Mhm.
I basically I was a Salesforce consultant for those 8 years, and the number of people who thought, "Oh, I have Salesforce now. It's just going to work," and I'm like, No, that's clay to be molded. You got to tell me what to do with it. Like, you have to actually like design. So there is an element of technical infrastructure that's very individual, but I think I can help people on the mindset side approach it in a healthier way, so that having having better outcomes simply about how they based on how they think about it. And that's not, I don't think that's something a lot of people do. Like, I don't, it seems a very, and I actually, I blame the bartender in me, because I had a rule: no crying in the beer. So it was, I've always been the mindset person of, hey, we're here to have fun, right? Hey, with tech, what are we really trying to fix? What are we really trying to solve for? It's not like, ooh, shiny object syndrome, or, oh, I need friends. Like, they weren't allowed to cry in the beer. It was a hard rule.
Okay. Where do you see your practice in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, you've already talked a little bit about where you want to go with the one to many, but where do you see it from a revenue or from another metric standpoint?
Well, this is my second podcast interview, and so I actually want to go on more podcasts and, spread the word, if you will, but spread the thought process of, how to approach tech in a healthy, not even just healthy for you, healthy for your business way. So I would say that more podcasts is one of the, I think it could be have the biggest impact on my business in the long run. So that's kind of the easiest answer there.
Okay. Now, as we start to wrap up, I have some rapid fire wrap up questions.
All right.
What's one book, podcast, or resource that's been invaluable to your consulting practice?
So the first struggle was imposter syndrome. So there's a man on YouTube. His name is Quasi Johar, and he does a lot of identity shifting, and he does a lot of the shadow work, style work. And when I first got started, his YouTube channel was completely invaluable for actually turning me from the employee to the self-employed.
Okay, and tell his name
His
again.
name is Quasi Johar, Quazi. If you type that into YouTube, his videos will come up. But if you type in Quazi identity shift, I mean, just, it's going to
Plenty
be
of great material.
plenty. Yeah.
Okay. What is one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you started consulting for your on your own?
Um, what's one piece of advice I wish that somebody gave me? Well, you don't know what you don't know. And I already knew that going in. Like I did know that, but I will say that the ability to stay open to accepting that you don't know what you don't know can be hard when it's you reminding yourself and not somebody reminding you. Did that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah, it's also because we kind of have to, especially in the early years, we kind of have to posture a little bit and sort of be a little bit bigger than we are, maybe, because we are trying to get people to hire us for our expertise. So we want to make sure that, that we come across confidently. And sometimes that hinders our ability to say, I just don't know.
Well, that's also so two things on that. One, that's why I was saying build your LinkedIn profile now, because if you're doing that, then all of a sudden you don't have to come in blank. You can say like, look at all these recommendations of people who have already said I do the thing I say I do, right? And that's where it took me a minute to rebuild my own testimonial when I could have easily had a 10 years worth of testimonials. And well, squirrel brain, the second thing left. But the LinkedIn profile, like building that up, then you don't actually have to pretend. And so it's it it can help you do both things at the same time, like building that confidence and also actually having those client testimonials because people don't just show up and be a consultant about something they don't know. Like, but have you been tracking all the people you've helped with it? Probably not. Because
Ex-
your boss doesn't want you to do that because then you get more confidence that you could go do it yourself, right? Like, so you just have to know it's something for you and it'll help you later. If you ever wanted to do it, it's just a door,
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah, sounds good. Last and most important question. How can listeners connect with you if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Well, if you want to do the tech health scorecard, I will give you the link that you can put in the show notes. I would say that the four pillars of any business that you could be failing on, you don't actually have to talk to me. I made the scorecard so that people could actually make a difference in their business without me, right? This is my new theme. How do I help people without actually being in the room? But if you do want to actually put me in the room and talk to me a little bit and pick my brain, if you will, then you can find me on LinkedIn. I go by the handle The Business Cowgirl. You can also find me on YouTube, same handle, The Business Cowgirl. And there are already a ton of free resources on there for you to get you started. But both of those things are going to lead you toward, if you ever wanted to have, a chat or a clarity call, because I will say that people know where their pain is in their tech, but most of the time people don't know where it's coming from. So the clarity of, okay, the pain I'm feeling is real, it's not made up, and
Hmm.
it's coming from over here, but really that pain started over there. And so by telling me where, it's the same thing with magicians, right? The whole art of misdirection. That's tech in a nutshell. And so, if you ever need to talk to somebody who knows where the misdirection's coming from, then the business cowgirl.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And and for those of you listening, until next time, keep thriving through. If you're feeling overwhelmed after hearing everything Alyssa shared about building systems for your consulting practice, take a deep breath. Remember what she said. You don't have to build everything at once, and you definitely don't have to build it all yourself. Start with one thing. If you're still employed, start building your LinkedIn profile today. Ask for those recommendations. Share your knowledge. Build that social proof now so you're not starting from zero when you're ready to make the leap into self-employment. If you're already on your own and you're struggling, take Alyssa's tech health scorecard. You'll find the link in the show notes. Sometimes the pain you're feeling in your business isn't actually coming from where you think it is. And taking the assessment will give you that clarity. And that is the first step to fixing what's broken. And here's the big takeaway I want you to remember. Alyssa's boss was billing 4 times what he paid her. Think about that. Your expertise has value, probably more value than you're currently charging for it. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is whether you're ready to do the work of building a business that honors your value. You can connect with Alyssa on LinkedIn or check out her YouTube channel, The Business Cowgirl, for more free resources to help you build the systems your consulting business needs. Until next time, keep thriving through.